And then, Bruno, I've got one for you. Actually, off an article which you had done, and a question which we've now received off the back of that article, and it's just relating to the new trespassing bill that is in the process of being coming into South African law.
Sure.
Just a high level of this new bill basically having sanctions for trespassing. How does this interplay with evictions within South Africa, and how do these two things apply and where?
Sure. Okay. So the background to the question is it came off this little write-up that I did that was attached to one of the videos that you and I had actually done. So this case came out and it went through a number of different courts through the appeal process, and there was a bit of a panic at a certain point where the courts had refused to grant an eviction order and had simply not indicated what this owner was supposed to do. It was, this lady had been there for so long, I don't want to grant the eviction order. And, it sent a chill through our spine in the sense that we understand that it needs to be just and equitable. We understand that human rights are paramount. No one's arguing that. But, property ownership does need to be protected as well. So for there to be an open-ended order, left it very grey. When is this going to happen? How often can it happen? Do people feel secure now in property ownership, knowing that things like this are possible? But by the time it hit Constitutional Court, the reality behind it was it can't just be an indefinite. The owner of a property cannot be expected to provide accommodation to someone indefinitely. There needs to be a balance of rights. And, this case had very particular circumstances, but long story short, the Constitutional Court, although did consider the tenant's rights or the occupier's rights, did balance this and did not just completely almost ignore the property owner's rights. For lack of better words, I'm paraphrasing. I mean, the case goes into a lot more detail and explains this. So this question now on the trespassing bill basically came off the back of this going, great, so this is established by the Constitutional Court, but if the trespassing bill comes into play, is this going to be impacted? Are we going to have this question again? So first things first, right? And I know that this is something that Simao also lives by, the same as I do. We don't often spend a lot of time discussing bills or regulations that are just out for comment and things like that, simply because they're not in place yet. And it tends to cause this massive panic when pieces of legislation are put out there and everyone's now fearful, there's things in there they don't like. And, we spend hours and hours debating something that might just be deleted. I mean, we've got rental housing legislation and regulations that we're still waiting for that have been around for how long? There were supposed to be amendments to PI that have been around for forever, right? So that's the first thing. It comes from the department. And I mean, Nick agrees with us. We had this conversation before the show started. It appears to be kind of a restatement on what everyone assumed. How trespassers were supposed to be treated. This is what we assumed, but there was some kind of, uncertainty how the police were actually going to deal with this. So this is almost like an instruction from the way I read it to the cops to say, listen, if this happens, you are empowered. In fact, you're compelled to act in a very particular way, right? So I actually see it as a good thing. Some people are fearful of this bill because there are certain provisions that speak about how we're supposed to notify trespassers that they shouldn't be there. And I guess I understand, because when if somebody breaks into your house and it's now you're looking at them as a trespasser, the last thing you want to do is go up to the oak and have a conversation with them to ask them to please leave kindly before you do anything. The department did come out with a comment afterwards. So first of all, bear in mind, this is still a bill. It's up for comment. So a lot of people are going to put their thoughts out there, and it's probably going to be amended accordingly, right? But the department did come out after that, after hearing some of these comments, to say, listen, this doesn't impact what the common law states regarding things like private defense and self-defense and things like that. So the guy comes into your house pulling a gun at you. You don't have to ask them to leave. You're not relying on the Trespassers Act to get them out. There, you're relying on self-defense if you have to do something, right? So it doesn't override like everything else that we know in the criminal sphere. It just deals with trespassing specifically. And I mean, look at it in context. We're not dealing with like an armed robbery or violent crimes. Maybe we're dealing with a larger area where somebody goes and sets up camp there, and you need to get them out. And that's kind of where this conversation is going to end nicely. I almost feel nicely. I mean, but it's going to end with a positive note, possibly for property owners that have experienced vacant pieces of land being taken over by people and structures being set up. Now, again, no, like human rights are paramount, and that is protected in the Constitution. So the way I see it is this trespassing bill plays a little bit more on the owner's rights to say, listen, I've got a property, it's vacant, I'm allowed to have it vacant. Because it's vacant is not an invitation for anyone to move in. Yes, housing is a problem, but that can't be borne by a property owner. And this property owner, basically the trespassing bill now speaks about an owner's right to go to the police. And if somebody moves onto a property and sets up a structure, in the past, there was a debate on whether kicking them out without getting an eviction order, whether that was illegal or not. And this bill kind of answers that to say, well, no, you are entitled to go to the police. They've committed a crime. The police are allowed to remove them, and you're entitled to get your property back. Obviously, there's no case law about how long it actually takes for PI to suddenly kick in and start becoming applicable. But at least now this kind of restates listen, even if they just set up and they start like living there, you can still remove them potentially as trespassers. But we're yet to see. So no panic is needed and no excitement either. Don't over celebrate because it might not be the answer that you're looking for. So let's just keep a close eye on it and take it from there.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting follow-up if there is any development, in the bill in the future. But I couldn't agree with you more. I also view it in the sort of sense, it's sort of codifying what the common law principle for trespassing would be in any event. But as you say, let's see how we go in the future and if it gets some development.
Absolutely. But cool. Right. Then perfect. That is it for today. Thanks so much, Nick. And
thanks, Bruno.
Yeah, we'll see everyone again next week.
That's it. Have a good time. We'll see you later.